once again time to weigh in on a heavy hitting subject I'm trying not to be too guarded about. This is going to take some big lifting to try and break through this list, but I'm not going to be abashed about my choices, so hopefully I don't galvanize those watching. Let's test our mettle because it's time we discuss and rank the heavy shields of Skyrim from worst to best. This list will focus primarily on aesthetics and visuals instead of pure blocking power, and is highly subjective. I also once again highlight in this video the shields on back mod, which is an absolute requirement for me when using any shield within Skyrim. As always, if you find yourself enjoying the video, like and subscribe for more rankings, but let's not get weighed down here. Number 24, Imperial Shield. Honestly, this is kind of the heaviest list yet, as I found myself genuinely enjoying different and small aspects of almost every heavy shield in Skyrim for a variety of reasons. There actually really isn't a truly horrendous design as there is with other weapon categories to me. That being said, my least favorite and least used probably remains the Imperial Shield. While I want to love the Imperial Shield for differentiating itself by being a kite shield instead of the standard round design seen, well, everywhere within Skyrim, there's something about the Imperial Shield that just rubs me the wrong way. And I don't just mean the sultry look that General Tullius gives the player sometimes. While it's a slight step up from the Imperial Light Shield and isn't completely awful, I personally just don't vibe with it and don't like it as much as others in this list. The design of the steel ringing and protruding from the shield is a nice touch, however it's just a little overdone and overdesigned for what the shield is trying to do. And I still don't love the plank-like and boring appearance of the wood that makes up the bulk of the shield. It looks like it could be effective, especially when used to bash enemies' skulls in, but that only carries it so far. If you want to go full Imperial cosplay and armor, this shield can be a nice complement to those sets, but once again, I'm not imperially impressed with what we have here. Number 23, Hold Guards Shields. I got quite a few comments on my light shield ranking video calling out how I missed ranking the Hold Guard shields present in pretty much every major city within Skyrim. However, despite its appearance, the Guard shield is in fact a heavy shield, and the fact that many, myself included, didn't realize this based on its appearance places the shield type near the bottom of the list. The Hold Guards shields are as plain as it gets, being just extremely basic planks of wood strapped together with an iron or steel rim, with the only redeeming factor being the admittedly awesome decision to adorn each shield with the Hold's unique heraldry for that region. With the number of Hold shields in game, I'm just gonna rank the worst and best symbol in my humble opinion. The worst for me, and is quite fitting, is the Winterhold shield. While I understand the crown represents what Winterhold used to be, the seat of power in Skyrim, it much like Winterhold itself is just a sad shadow of what once was a powerful hold. And maintaining a crown as your symbol feels a bit like Uncle Rico clinging onto his old high school glory days. The best for me is Solitude. While wolves will always be awesome in their own right, the deep red and black of this symbol is extremely unique and intimidating, representing the dangerous power of Solitude itself, with plenty of bite to back up its bark. Number 22, Steel Shield. Considering how much I love steel in pretty much every other category, the shield is a big miss for me. The steel itself looks more like iron with its various nicks and dents and just its texture, and the design is just this sort of strange curved horn appearance that, while not bad on its own, doesn't match any other steel design piece of gear within the game. Where are the Nordic runes? While I can enjoy some nice hard exposed wood, it doesn't land on the steel shield as it's once again just too plank-like and boring. That being said, I think this one matches and blends well into the world of Skyrim itself and can be a very immersive shield to use when rolling around in almost any heavy armor set. It's not a completely terrible design, however, it just doesn't fit at all with its own category, and I still think it probably deserves its place near the bottom of the list. Number 22, Falmer Shield. I'm not blind to my bias against Falmer designs within Skyrim, and maintain that while novel and unique in their own right, they still fail to appeal to me in pretty much any way. That being said, the idea of a shield made from the hardened, almost impenetrable chitin shell of deep-dwelling bugs and creatures makes much more sense than the weapons concocted up by these poor fallen elves. While extremely similar in appearance to other Falmer gear, I think the shield is just better realized and realistic compared to Falmer weapons especially. It's not really one I enjoy wielding or seeing my character wear, but it's not completely horrible, matching well with the more fantastical elements of Skyrim while still appearing grounded and usable. A balance I find Skyrim actually strikes very well for the most part. The textures really don't do this shield any favors, however, with some parts almost looking hairy or fur-like to me in an extremely creepy and really off-putting way. I maintain that being blind is no excuse for shoddy aesthetics or craftsmanship here. Number 21, Banded Iron Shield. I hope I don't get banned for this opinion, but I really don't like the Banded Iron Shield for the most part. While a fully iron shield with no wood or other materials is a cool idea, the execution leaves a bit to be desired for me here. It certainly looks like a real heavy shield, shield with a heavy set and solid appearance that places it above the others so far, but the designs engraved onto the face and back of the shield don't really appeal to me at all. The strange swirl pattern and bulbous protrusions on the face look silly and out of place compared to the banded iron set itself, and in general it's not a shield I use for any meaningful amount of time, as it is almost made obsolete immediately by steel and other higher level materials, which leaves me using it for solely appearance's sake, and yeah, that doesn't really happen often. A better etched design with maybe spikes or rivets in place of these bulbous zits, and the shield would have banned amazing. Let's all band together in our dislike of the shield and move on. Number 20, Madness Shield. This one certainly lives up to its name, as it is maddeningly close to greatness, if only its general shape were different. Also, this entry is a good reminder of how subjective this ranking is, as the Madness Shield is one of the strongest shields in the game in its base form, so don't take this too seriously now. I honestly love the multi-eyed fanged grin of this shield's face, as it's not only extremely unique, but also intimidating and just cool as hell. However, the crossed eyes on the back could probably use some work. Despite its incredibly awesome face appearance, I absolutely hate the overall shape of the shield itself. With these strange handle-like protrusions on the sides, it almost looks like a jar or vase in its silhouette and doesn't really communicate shield to me, as much as the character just grabbing a weird serving plate and using that for some impromptu protection. Even if just the handles were removed from the sides, it would vastly improve the overall appearance of this shield to me. But who am I to tell Sheogorath what looks good? Number 19, Iron Shield. In addition to the steel sword and iron armor set, the Iron Shield remains one of the most iconic pieces of gear within Skyrim to me, and despite its relative weakness to other shields in this list, remains one of my favorites to use for probably longer than makes sense. I just love how rustic and battered the shield looks, and it completely matches the brutal adventurer waiting the low-level Dragonborn as they begin their journey. The enlarged boss of iron gives this shield a pretty unique look, with bands of iron reinforcing the rim and center of this strong-looking piece of gear. And while the appearance of iron in general still isn't my favorite and places it on the lower half of the list, I think its mottled and battered appearance matches the shield much better than the iron weapons and armor that share its aesthetic. Ironically, a great design with just a few blemishes. Number 18, Dwarven Shield. While I have generally praised Dwarven gear for its more utilitarian and functional design choices when it comes to weapons at least, the Dwarven Shield sadly falls short and looks too over-designed for me. There's still a lot to love here, including the various small details of its craftsmanship, with bands of metal and bolts reinforcing different areas, and the central Dwarven runes inscribed onto the face. However, there's just way too much geometry happening with its general profile and appearance. It almost looks like 3 different shield designs just mashed together, as they couldn't quite land on the one that they wanted, and in my opinion doesn't match the plain workman-like appearance of dwarven weapons. While I think it's better than the Dwemer shields of Morrowind and Oblivion, much like dwarves, it fails to stack up against the competition. Number 17, Storm Bear Shield. This Creation Club addition to the shield lineup, while a welcome one, leaves a bit to be desired for me personally. I think in general it's an okay looking shield with a classic round design and featuring the heraldry of the various holds of Skyrim, with an emphasis on the Storm Cloak Bear of Windhelm, of course. As much as I might enjoy the gold and blue color scheme, it feels rushed for some reason. Just the overall design feels very slapped together to me. I think the gold reinforcing the rim and boss are great, but wish there were more metallic bands or something crossed throughout the shield face itself. It just doesn't look like a heavy shield to me to be used by a powerful Nordic champion as intended. Despite what I may enjoy about it, there's just not quite enough to latch on to here. And as cool as it is flavor-wise, I can easily bear putting it on the lower half of the list. Number 16, Shield of Ysgramor. Oh, Ysgramor, what could have been? I know it's a heavy shield, and apparently Ysgramor was a massive Chad warrior who could wield Wuthrod in one hand and the shield in the other, but did it really need to be so damn big? To be honest, I heavily dislike the appearance of this shield, and really only its unique questline and extremely useful enchantment place it even this high on the list. I know I just complained that the Stormbear shield didn't quite look heavy enough, but the Shield of Ysgramor takes it to the extreme on the other end, looking completely unwieldy and impractical, especially with its turtle shell-like appearance when stowed on the back. I'm also not sure what the engravings, other than just being ancient Nord stuff, are supposed to be. Is it a face with horns? A dragon? Why is there this massive line splitting the middle? What should be a badass face to strike fear into my enemies as I charge is instead a confusing mess of lines and runes. Ysgramor? More like It's No More. Because I don't want to use it anymore. Whew, that one hurt. Number 15, Blade's Shield. What it may lack in unique shape, the Blade's Shield more than makes up for with pure impressive attention to detail. Compared to some of the other simple and low-res base game models, the Blade's Shield features an impressive amount of detailing in the intricate designs woven and wrapping around the face and back and rim of the shield. Once again, we have a lovely gold and dark blue color scheme that looks unique without sacrificing immersion or looking completely out of place when paired with most armor sets. I particularly enjoy the woven knots of gold on the outer 2 rings of the the shield, and while it retains the same basic design as its Oblivion counterpart, it fortunately received a well-needed glow-up to make it one of the more impressive models within the base game. All that being said, it does lack some unique factors that rank it lower than the remaining shields on my list, but it is a fantastic looking shield worthy of any naked skooma addicted member of the Blades. Number 14, Bone Mold Shield. I admit nostalgia for bone mold as a material does a lot of heavy lifting in placing the shield this high on my list. Unlike the wretched stitched together rotten Falmer attempts at organic armors, something about bone mold always felt more noble and powerful, probably mostly due to how tough it is within Morrowind and who is seen wearing it. The Bone Mold Shield, made of woven bone plates of some type of creature native to Morrowind, maybe Guar, appears fairly intimidating and just really cool in my opinion. Again, I love the idea of wielding and wearing bones to overpower enemies, and the Bone Mold Shield accomplishes this with its extremely unique shape and overlapping plates of armor. A really nice touch is what appears to be sinew or maybe smaller bone segments, making and tying and securing the plates together. And overall, I think this is a fantastic shield. If you disagree, come on, just throw me a bone here. Number 13, Ebony Shield. As we near the top of my list, we face some extremely difficult decisions of what to rank above each other, and despite all the things I enjoy about the Ebony Shield, it is an unfortunate casualty of my own personal preferences and biases. It's a great looking shield that almost looks like someone took the breastplate of armor and strapped a grip to the back, and I really appreciate its unique, almost kite shield shaped design. The large hooks and curved pieces of the rim are a great touch, and a great way to show that this is no mundane shield, but instead one of the most powerful and intimidating metals within all of Tamriel. While I think the flowing small script on the bottom half is a great touch, I would have appreciated more of the exotic swirling patterns present on ebony weapons across the shield in general. There's little hints of it on the two hooked ends along the sides, but more of that pattern could have created a much more unique appearance that in my opinion would have matched well with the rest of the ebony set. But regardless, this definitely remains one of the coolest shields within the game. Number 12, Ethereal Shield. While this one maintains many of my criticisms of the Dwarven Shield, what with it using the exact same model, the glowing blue arcane lights present on the Ethereal Shield do some very heavy lifting and making me really appreciate its unique appearance when compared to other shields. It's just a perfect complement for a heavy armor wearing spell sword or battle mage, and the swirling patterns and energy pulsing through the blue center just look so awesome when compared to the mundane plain metal of the standard Dwarven Shield. And the standard rivets being replaced by these sort of gemstones is another nice touch. It also helps that the ethereal version has a very unique and flavorful enchantment. It also complements a mage build nicely with a friendly tap of the shield, sending enemies running in fear and turning ethereal. Admittedly, it's kind of an annoying enchantment for a melee build, but great for creating some space when trying to throw some spells. Overall, you could say the ethereal shield is transparently great. Number 11, Golden Saint Shield.
I love gold!
You've got to hand it to those Golden Saints, they have some shining style. The Golden Saint shield with its unique teardrop shape and shining fiery design emblazoned on the front is one of my favorite golden items within the game next to the Golden Saint sword. While this shield only does fit aesthetically for me with a type of paladin or holy warrior build and playstyle, it's just so stylish and fantastic looking that I can't help but love it in general. The rim job of the smaller teardrop shaped symbols etched around the edges is a nice touch, and the curling fiery design is a highlight for me, and it's hard not to enjoy using and seeing this Creation Club edition within Skyrim. I can't say it fits the overall atmosphere of the world very well, but considering it's a Daedric artifact, not really of this world, we can give it a pass here. It's definitely a shield worth its weight in gold. Number 10, Nordic Shield. It's once again time to get my furry on because we got some good stuff here for sure. As with pretty much every other piece of the Nordic set, the Nordic Shield is no exception to excellent and attractive design elements. The Nordic runes inscribed and reinforcing the shield proper, the more rustic and hardy leather core binding the shield together, and of course the fur wrapping around the rim. There's just so much to love about the appearance of the Nordic Shield. I find the metal on the face very interesting, and I'm curious to hear thoughts on what it's supposed to be or represent. I think it looks great, but I have no idea what it's supposed to even look like. While the sides look like some type of animal or wolf howling, the strange lower half with these uneven blocky teeth-like shapes are so intriguing to me. Considering the attention to detail on display, the fact that these blocky metallic strips are uneven were obviously an intentional choice by Bethesda designers, and I'm not entirely sure why. Possibly intending to be a beard? Regardless, it's not enough to reduce my love of using and rolling around the frosty peaks of Skyrim with this shield. 8 out of 10 would bash a bear with again. Number 9, Dragon Plate Shield. This shield in the top 10 might be the hot take of this video, as I've seen many comments hating the appearance of most Dragonbone gear within Skyrim, heavy shield included. While I can agree with that sometimes, I think the Dragon Plate Shield is absolutely fire. As I said before, using the bones of creatures, especially a dragon, as an armor or weapon piece, or in this case a shield, can be incredibly incredibly cool if pulled off correctly, and in this case I think it's realized very well. With just a grip and a bit of metal added to reinforce the back, the entire shield is seemingly made of one solid piece of bone, which for me is much better looking than a more cobbled together or crafted mess of bony pieces like the light dragon skin shield. Although I'm not entirely sure if this is meant to be the top of a dragon's skull or possibly a breastbone or plate. Either way, it looks extremely unique in its silhouette and texture. It looks tough and heavy as hell and is a fairly realistic depiction of what a massive bone shield could look like and remains somewhat usable at all. I think I just mostly love its general unique shape when compared to other shields, and it has a great feeling of progression when acquired. It really makes you feel like a dragon slaying dragonborn who has a bone to pick. Number 8, Ordinator Shield. The Ordinator Shield is no ordinary piece of gear. While it has some really amazing detailing and design and a nice rounded kite-shaped profile, I admit my love of the Ordinator Shield is carried almost entirely by my nostalgia and love for almost all things Morrowind, with the design lifted almost directly one for one from that game. The shield features the classic symbol of the Tribunal Temple etched into the beautiful golden metal that makes up the entirety of the shield itself. I always appreciate when devs can take a very old and low-res model of something and refresh it and update it to modern standards. Well, Skyrim standards at least. It's just a great looking shield that, while not quite as heavy metal as others and honestly could have been sized up a bit, looks fantastic when being wielded and used. Bringing a taste of Morrowind to mainland Skyrim is always fun, and the Ordinator Shield is no exception here. Number 7, Daedric Shield. Speaking of heavy metal, we come to the wickedly dangerous and edgy Daedric Shield. This one remains one of my favorite pieces of Daedric gear within the entire game, and I think it captures perfectly what it's supposed to be. A demonic infused piece of equipment meant to inflict as much fear and pain as possible on those on the unfortunate receiving end of it. I love just how much this one screams forged in oblivion itself, with a predominantly black, almost volcanic appearance to the large spiked or clawed pieces jutting from the metal. It of course features the traditional Daedric red glowing energy pulsing within, and the lack of any type of symmetry adds to its supernatural and dangerous appearance. Just a completely twisted metal heap of death, the Daedric Shield is devilishly awesome. Number 6, Orcish Shield. This is a bit awkward, but I find myself increasingly attracted to almost anything and everything orc. It's hard not to though, because when it comes to stark brutality, the orcs remain unmatched, and the shield is no exception here. I just love the aesthetic of this shield with its heavy overlapping plates of metal reinforced and attached with massive rivets that make up the bulk of the face design. The shield features an extremely unique shape with jagged edges that look more than capable of cutting the wielder just as much as those they might fight. The boss, if it can be called that here, is extremely unique as well, basically just being this massive jutting spike that reinforces the brutal design philosophy of the orc as a bash first, ask questions later approach to combat. With multiple scratch, dents, and blemishes, it's clear this shield has seen some action, and overall, the Orcish Shield just hits all the right notes for a beautiful orchestra of death. Number 5, Dawnguard Shield. While yes, the Dawnguard Shield is almost exactly the same as the Rune version, which is just the light variant that essentially uses the same model, it's still an extremely great looking shield that deserves a spot near the top of this list. It's actually a little strange, as the Rune light version is seemingly all metal, while the Dawnguard Shield heavy version features these leather highlights woven into the face design. I would think it would be the other way around, but since when did we expect logic from some of these designs? Regardless, my praise of the Dawnguard Rune Shield carries into this one with an incredibly flavorful and impressive sun design etched into the face, with really cool looking curved rays beaming and flaring outward, reflecting the Dawnguard's mission to bring light into the darkness. The Dawnguard Shield looks stylish and powerful with any type of character and armor, and is just a very solid design. Number 4, Targe of the Blooded. Where the Targe of the Blooded may lack an intricate and impressive detail and design, it more than makes up for in unique flavor and brutality. This shield, straight out of Mortal Kombat. Side note, my autocorrect changed that to Mortal Kombat with a C, and it's disgusting how cursed that looks. It is extremely basic, but I think that does it some favors in a few areas with this design. Clearly intended to be a completely utilitarian and straightforward, no-nonsense piece of gear, the wicked series of spikes replacing the boss within the center clearly communicate what you are meant to do while wielding this thing. With an extremely cool, unique enchantment that causes bleed on bash, this shield can be more of an offensive tool within your arsenal than anything else. I could be wrong, but historically I believe spiked shields were either rare or not really used much, likely due to how most melee warfare was conducted in large unit formations and blocks of soldiers, as you don't exactly want a bunch of spiked shields poking your back if you happen to be the ones marching in front. However, seeing as the Dragonborn fights solo for the most part, unless Lydia decides to get in the way and get her head bashed in, it really doesn't matter much here. This is an extremely deadly and wicked looking shield that deserves a spot high on the list for its unique flavor. Number 3, Ariel's Shield. On the other end of the spectrum from the Targe of the Blooded, we have the beautiful and elegant Ariel's Shield. This divinely empowered artifact remains one of my favorite legendary items within all of Skyrim, as it features not only a unique and striking appearance, but also an extremely fun to use unique enchantment. Capable of storing the energy of attacks, power bashing with the shield will release that energy in a devastating burst of power that easily and comically sends enemies flying. It's such a compelling and unique gameplay mechanic that again makes me wish that enchantments within Skyrim were more varied and interesting in general. With an almost aggressive radiant light reflecting and shimmering on the elegant curves and lines of this shield, this item properly reflects the sheer power and majesty of the Dragonborn in a way that few other items can. While it's not a shield I can immersively use with any type of build or armor set, it nevertheless remains one of the most impressively executed shields within the game in almost every way. The pure aura of the Ariel's Shield is almost unmatched. Number 2, Imperial Dragon Shield. The only, outside of other mods, proper tower shield I think within the entire game, the Imperial Dragon Shield is obviously one of my favorites. A powerful symbol of the majesty and authority of the Empire, the Imperial Dragon Shield is at the same time beautifully designed, while also looking extremely effective as an actual shield. As a self-proclaimed filthy lover of the Empire in Skyrim, the red and gold color scheme of course appeals to me greatly, and the golden dragon wings emblazoned on the shield face just look incredible. I think it's just such an awesome mix of taking something recognizable and grounded, obviously with the design based heavily on real-life Roman scutum shields with plenty of artistic flair and fantasy flavor. With Imperial armor, or really most heavy armor sets, I think it just looks so badass when stowed on the back and wielded by the player. Despite the motif on the front, the shield ain't dragging. Number 1, Spellbreaker. And here is my hypocrisy and subjectivity laid bare, as despite looking more like some type of fragile scientific device intended to tell the time, instead of a powerful heavy shield, Spellbreaker remains my favorite within the entire game. I have praised and ranked the shields on this list almost entirely on their functional appearance and practicality, and here I am ranking a shield as number 1 that looks like one solid blow would cause it to explode into 1,000 pieces within your hand. Despite its completely fantastical and unrealistic appearance, I can't rank Spellbreaker lower than number 1, as I think it's just such an incredibly cool fantasy item in both its design and use within the game. With an extremely useful and powerful enchantment that acts as a ward against magical attacks, including the Breath of Dragons, Spellbreaker is just too flavorful and unique not to love. The design is absolutely pure fantasy, with the thin metallic petals of metal curving outwards from the boss, a design that I'm pretty sure is completely antithetical to how a shield should work in general, and subtle geometric patterns worked into its center. The shield just looks completely magical and otherworldly, a perfect reflection of its ability to hunt and destroy magic wielders within the world of Skyrim. Despite breaking a few of my own rules when it comes to ranking, I'm happy to have Spellbreaker as number 1. And there you have it, every heavy shield within Skyrim highly subjectively ranked. Let me know in the comments what I missed, or what your favorite heavy shield is within Skyrim. Also, if you have some ideas for new rankings, feel free to also drop those in the comments below. If you enjoyed, once again like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.